Hello everyone, my name is Rich Snyder. I'm the parts manager here at Cambridge Center Honda. Today we're going to be recording a series of videos geared towards winter tires. All things about winter tires, comparing winter tires versus three-season tires or all-season tires, talking about all-weather tires, doing some deep dives on specific winter tires like Michelin, BFG, Uniroyal, Continental, amongst a bunch of other things. And today I have with me my good friend John from TireLink. TireLink is our major tire wholesaler that we buy most of our winter tires and our all-season tires from. John has a plethora of knowledge, and I'm happy to have him here with me today as we talk about winter tires and all things winter tires. So the very first video we're going to shoot is called Why Should I Invest in Winter Tires? And sort of do a comparison between all seasons and three seasons or winter tires. John, I'm going to toss it to you.
Thank you for having me, Rich. I really appreciate the opportunity and for welcoming into the Cambridge Center Honda today. Always been happy with our partnership and the way we've been able to move forward, and very excited for this. First and foremost, when we talk about winter tires and we talk about the differences between winter and all season, a lot of it comes down to three main categories, and a lot of those have to deal with the winter tread grooves, the compound adhesion, and the sight technology. So a lot of the times when we talk about winter tire conditions, we talk about from fresh snow to packed snow to fresh ice or wet ice to dry ice type conditions. And as we progress through those different characteristics within the winter season, the different technologies or the different aspects of the tire really come into play. So the tread grooves will typically deal with your fresh snow and wet snow conditions. And then as you get into the more packed snow and the icy conditions, you really start to rely on the rubber compound adhesions and the sight technology. Mm-hmm. And that really is what's going to differ between a winter tire and all-season tire. And when you look at winter tires, you tend to get double or triple the amount of siping in a winter tire than you would in an all-season tire. And that's where the differences come in, because that sipes really start to act like little fingers, as you call it, over the road surface, and they will open up as you travel along the road.
So you've dropped a lot of really deep technological terms here for people. There'll be probably a lot of people watching that aren't familiar with what a sipe is.
Yes.
So we brought some tires here that we're going to put up on the table so that we can record. We're going to show some differences between winter tires and three-season tires.
Absolutely.
So this is the Michelin Primacy MXV4.
So what you notice in this tire, and again, when we talk about the differences in the tread grooves and we talk about the rubber compound. So this rubber compound is really designed to stay soft and malleable above 7 degrees Celsius. The 7 degrees is the critical crossover point where the rubber compound itself starts to change. So this rubber will be nice and soft and tacky in warmer conditions, and that is going to provide the grip and the traction that you need to maintain control. Yeah. Well, when we look at the tread grooves have, you've got your tread grooves here, and the ones that run horizontally across the tread pattern, and these will all deal with evacuating slush and snow and water and all those things. And what happens is the tread grooves will vary from a winter tire to an all-season tire. So you see the size of these grooves, and you look at, this is what we refer to as a sipe. They all work in tandem with each other.
Yeah, so the cuts into the blocks of rubber, those are called sipes.
This is the sipe here, right? So this is a sipe, this is a groove. And these all change when you go from an all-season tire like this, and we're going to show the winter tire here in a moment. But what you'll notice is, you can see how this block has 2, this one has 3, and it alternates back and forth. And that's to help with oscillation and noise and make the tire smooth and quiet and comfortable. These tread grooves deal with a certain amount of volume, and because it's a liquid, the groove doesn't have to be necessarily as wide, because it's not dealing with a solid, right? Mm-hmm. So it can evacuate the water, and the design and everything is all particular to the tire, and it's to help get the water channeling through the tire and then obviously out the side of the tire.
And the rubber, like you said, this rubber is meant to stay soft and malleable at temperatures above 7 degrees. You can kind of squish this rubber a little bit with your fingers, but once that 7 degree temperature hits to Celsius, this is like a hockey puck. It doesn't hardly move at all.
Correct.
Which is very difficult for the tire to do its job in those temperatures.
Ultimately, what happens is when the rubber starts to solidify, it loses grip. And there's always a trade-off in this industry. Yeah. If you want grip, there's different things that you're going to have to give up, right?
Exactly. So let's bring up that winter tire.
Perfect.
This is the Michelin Excise Snow. This is new for the 2021 season.
Yeah. So this tire here just got released, a lot of new technology. Michelin's always had a great reputation in creating one of the quietest, most performing winter tires that we have. Now, what they did do is the one The one major benefit that they did improve on was the snow slush traction. You know, the Excise has always been a great riding tire. It's one of the very few that has a lot of, I would say, top technology built into the tire. And you'll notice that this groove is significantly larger. And you notice that you don't have a lot of longitudinal grooves in this tire. It's in a heavy V pattern, and that's to evacuate slush and snow as fast as possible. So you don't want it staying within the tire. What you want to do is get it away from the tire and keep the tire on the road surface.
Yeah, that was one of the things that customers who had Excise 3s they were complaining about, was they didn't have great deeper snow traction.
Correct.
Right, and we had the opportunity to drive this tire in Montreal at Michelin. That was pretty insane, the deep snow traction, and we went driving on a test track. It was a pretty cool experience, but we really got to see this thing shine in all of its glory.
Absolutely, and we saw it at full tread depths, we saw it at 4/32 tread depths, and the performance throughout the tire actually maintained its performance all the way through the life of the tire. So that was huge to see, because that's one of the biggest trade-offs in winter is, you know, when you're dealing with a solid as the tire wears, it becomes that much more difficult to deal with those conditions. So this here, when you look at the size of this groove and in the shape that it's designed, you can see it's alternating V patterns, and that's to ensure that you're always moving water away from the tire as it travels down the road surface. The Cyc technology, as you can see, the blocks are a little bit larger, a little lunkier, sharper edged, and that's to help cut through the snow. And they do an offsetting kind of tread groove here. So you see this one's in a little bit further than the outside, right? And that's to create more of like a sawtooth blade type condition, so it can cut through the snow. And then the H block, it's got what's called an H block, and it's a little hard to notice, but you'll notice that there's little notches inside each of the Cyc, and that's to help keep the tread together so you don't feel that squirm. It gives you that all-season type feel on the road, but gives you the grip and the traction that you're looking for.
Yeah, because a lot of people say, well, in previous generations of tires, like, oh, my tires feel really, really squishy when I'm driving on them. That's because the Cycs were just created that specific way, but these Cycs are created in a way that will help get rid of that squishiness.
Yeah, the technology has definitely evolved over the last 15, 20, 25 plus years, and that a lot of that has to do with Cyc technology and rubber compound, right? So this rubber compound, it's hard obviously to notice right now because the conditions are nice and warm and it is still quite soft, but this rubber will maintain its soft, malleable, flexible condition sub 7 degrees Celsius.
The other thing that Michelin does is they also inject silica into all their rubber compounds, which at a molecular level, it's a tough word to say, creates like a very fine grit, which also helps it stick to icy surfaces too.
So the silica actually has multiple benefits to it. Actually silica is what helps the rubber stay soft in cold conditions, right? The carbon that they add to the tire to give it its nice black consistency, unfortunately, has a negative effect of making the tire hard. The silica actually helps keep it soft, right? So it's a complex blend of making sure that you get the formula correct. Too much silica would make this tire act like a rubber ball and bounce down the road, and that's not what we want, but it keeps it soft.
No, we don't want people driving on rubber balls bouncing down the road, for sure.
No, we don't.
Cool.
It really comes down to three main things. At the end of the day, the only input you have to bring the vehicle to a stop is that brake pedal. And that input is only transmitted through the tire. So ultimately, the rubber is what's going to help you stop and bring that car to a stop. And it's about traction and control. Really, those two things are the only two elements that you have in the vehicle that really make you the driver. And without those two elements, traction and control, at the end of the day, you're really not a driver.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
cool. All right, well, that concludes this video. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next video. Thanks so much.